Some of these are on different domain names. Some of them are just alias addresses for my main address.
Perfect.
Cool. So we've covered email migration process. You choose the domain name. We get the account verified, right? And that requires some DNS techie stuff. Then we migrate your emails across. So whatever history you want to move across for the email, we move that across. Then if you've got anything in Dropbox or Google Drive or anything else that you want to move across, all of that stuff can be moved across as well, right? So some of that you might choose to drag and drop yourself. Some of that you might choose, all right, I want the itGenius team to do it for me. We've got our automated tools that'll do like cloud to cloud and suck it out of your Dropbox and put it in your Google Drive automatically, right? So we've got that. Then training enablement. So we've got like an online training course. The team will do a couple of like Google Meets with you and that kind of thing, answer all your questions, make sure you're comfortable with it. And then, you set it up on all your devices. You make sure you're able to log in and get access to everything. And then we do what's called the go live. Now, that would usually be going from an old mail system to a new mail system, but you might not have emails running on that domain name right now. I get the sense it might not be used. Yeah, great, easy. So you'll be set up in no time, easy. And then you're good to go. And the cool thing about Gmail is, and this is quite often a question that newbies have, is like, oh, well, if I send someone a meeting invitation, will they know that I'm on Google, right? Like, will they know that? Now, apart from the fact that you might send a Google Calendar link, a Google Meet link, right? That's probably the only clue that they're going to have that you're on Google. If I send a test event, I mean, you would have got one for this call, right, to your university address. It comes through as a normal .ics file. That's a standard calendar file across Mac, Windows, and Google complies with that standard. It attaches a .ics only due to the fact that I happen to attach a Google Calendar meeting, which happens automatically once I add a guest. So if I add in Todd here, it's not you. Okay, I'm going to add one of my colleagues. I'll add Regina. There we go. Okay, so I've added Regina in there, and automatically a Google meeting has popped up, right? Now, even if that's an external person outside my company, even if they don't have a Google account, doesn't matter what platform they're on, they'll get that link to the meeting in their email.
Nice.
Yeah, and all they know is I've got a meeting with Todd. It's on my calendar. And I don't know if it puts it in the location field or whatever, but they can click on the meeting link and then they can join the meeting. Pretty straightforward.
So, Peter, I think what we need to do is once I get this up and running and get your help with it, I would love to do a deeper dive into what you're showing here. Like, I know that's really simple. You do this all the time. I have never seen that. I'm just opening up my Zoom account and copying and pasting. Like, there's stuff that you can do in this ecosystem to make life a whole lot easier. I want to know more about specifics.
We can certainly do that. I'll show you a couple of very, very small tricks now just to get you excited. And then when it comes time for that, we'll loop back and we'll do that. Some of these are really useful specifically for managing your life working with other team members. So having team calendars where multiple people are accessing your calendar, or multiple people are accessing a shared calendar, makes life easy so you can coordinate with other people. At a minimum, if you want to work with one or two people in your business, you probably want to share your calendars with each other so you know when people are free or busy. And so let's say I want to meet with Scott, my business partner. I can click on to Scott, open his calendar, and I'm going to have difficulty finding times because he finishes early in the afternoons, and I am on a completely different time zone to him. But let's try and find a day when we've both got a gap. Maybe sometime next week. No. Okay, maybe if I get up. Hold on. There we go. If I get up at 5 a.m., I can catch Scott there. So, but that lets me see. That lets me see immediately when we're both available for a meeting. If I want to find time with us together, I can do that for 3 or 4 or 5 people at the same time, which makes it very useful if I've got to connect with lots of different people. Right now, that's for me because I've got team members, right? But other things that might be useful is, for example, having one calendar for your personal stuff and one calendar for your business stuff. So I might say, hey, you know what? This afternoon, I want to go to the gym. I can pop in on my personal calendar. So I've got a little P for Peter Personal here. It changes it to a different color. That's nice and useful. But importantly, I can share the events on my personal calendar with partner, friends, football club, I don't know, whatever. There's the opportunity to share your calendar with others if you want to share your calendar. I can even let someone manage my calendar if I want. So my PA has the ability to manage my business calendar. She'll say, hey, Pete, this person wants to meet with you on blah, blah day. Is that cool with you? Yep, sure, great. And then it just appears on my calendar. Or, hey, can you organize these flights for me? Or organize this accommodation for me? Yep, all the flights get organized. And if Google doesn't automatically put them on my calendar, which it does try to, but if it doesn't automatically, then they get placed on my calendar by someone else. So all those little collaboration features are very useful.
So I'm thinking about the way I'm doing this currently versus what you're showing here. And I thought I was good with technology, but I've got a lot to learn.
There is a lot to learn. The great thing about Google, and I'm a Mac guy from way back, right? My family were into Macs, and I grew up with Macs as well as tinkering with Windows machines as well. So I've got a bit of both worlds. Google's quite similar to Macs in that, number one, it generally just works because it runs in the browser and it's pretty hard to break it. It doesn't rely on a local app running on your computer. It just relies on the internet. So, I mean, yeah, sure, you've got to have a good internet connection, but everyone's got a good internet connection these days. So things just tend to work. Number two, it's designed to be pretty simple. You'll notice there's like reasonably bold, like colors and easy to read. I've got a big screen, so the font's a bit small for you, but it's reasonably easy to use and work out the platform. It's reasonably intuitive because it's been designed really with that like anti-Microsoft ethos, where I try not to hate on Microsoft, but Microsoft is very sophisticated and powerful, but it's built by IT guys for IT guys, where it's got all these features, and some people just need 3 of those features. And I'm one of those people, like I just want to get my work done, and I tend to gravitate towards just sticking to the basics rather than tinkering. I love tinkering, but I don't think tinkering is productive when I'm doing my work. I'll tinker on the weekends. I'll tinker with a motorbike, or with I've got a camper truck. I tinker with that. That's fine, and that's more enjoyable. But I'm over my tinkering days with IT stuff because it's not productive time in my business. So I prefer to have something simple that works, and it might not have all the bells and whistles, but I've long stopped caring about having all of those in the Google world.
Nice.
Yeah. And there's an argument for the collaboration features, and a year or two ago, Google were 5 years ahead of Microsoft in AI-infused machine learning in the Google applications. I still think they're ahead in like auto responses to your emails when you're writing them. It'll auto compose for you. If someone sends you a chat, it'll automatically suggest responses to the chat in little bubbles that you can just like click with one button. Like all those little things are really, really nice, and I think Google's still well ahead of many competitors in that respect.
So one more question. I think we're probably getting close to time. AI. It comes with Gemini. Yeah. So what will I be able to do with Gemini in the Google ecosystem that's going to make my life easier?
I'm going to be really cheeky and say, well, when it works.
Oh, is that right? I've not dabbled with it, so I don't know what to expect with it.
It's something that I want to work. Gemini's got a lot better. In the last 45 days, I've primarily used Gemini for everything, and it's come leaps and bounds. It's now actually usable as my primary, and only 1 or 2 queries out of 10, which I do 10 or more a day, do I find myself having to go to another platform because Gemini's, I don't know, got a bug or something like that. But like even this afternoon, I asked it, what's the difference between a Western Digital, My Passport, and other models, right? I asked it that this afternoon, and it popped up and just said there's been an error, and then just did nothing. What does that even mean? And like it's just worked for me now. Like I've just run that query and it's worked for me now, and that's great. But it's tough. The thing that you can do in Gemini, and most of these are pretty par for par when it comes to writing and finding stuff on the web, and having a conversation with AI that you just couldn't do 2 years ago. There's small nuances, maybe Claude's a little bit better for creative writing, and maybe, GPT is a little bit better for some advanced reasoning. The thing that Gemini does, which none of the others get anywhere close to, is you can say, at Drive, right? At Google Drive.
Right.
Tell me what was discussed in last week's Attract Sync meeting. That's our marketing team. That's our marketing team weekly meeting. So it's going to go and look up the transcription of that meeting in my Google Drive, hopefully. and it's going to hopefully give me some notes from that. Here we go. So February 19, yep, it got the date right. Project updates, production updates, various technical issues. There we go. So it's pulled up the notes. It's let me know where it's got those notes from with citations, so I can go ahead and open up the actual notes document if I want, and it's brought up all of the notes there for me. That's just a document sitting in my drive, and I can say, great, can you tell me roughly how much time each person spent speaking based on the timestamps? I've never tried that one. Let's see if we can do something difficult. I don't know how this one's going to go. It might make something up. Let's see.
It's always good at that.
Yeah. Well, it is good at that.
It's better to say there was an error. I'd almost rather have that than, hey, here's what actually happened. No,
exactly. Then it'd be convincingly wrong. And I have had it be very confidently incorrect before.
There's a fair amount of that. So while we're waiting for this, what if I have 4 or 5 PDFs on a topic that I'm thrilled about, like how to do a blocked ANOVA? And I put all of those in my drive. Can it read those and then synthesize that and give me a summary of something that I have put into the drive that's on a PDF or a Word doc or something that's not Google?
Yeah, correct. How about tell me the last 10 files that are PDF format that I put in my drive? Let's see what happens. Dictating, by the way, with an app called, forget the settings for this one, Flow Pro it's called. Oh, it asked for the transcript. Okay, it was looking at the wrong file. If we had given it the transcript, it probably would have worked out. There we go. Okay. Unfortunately I can't ask for analysis on those documents as shareholders agreements and stuff like that there. So we'll skip that. We'll skip that for now. But yes, you can ask it anything about files that are sitting there in your drive, which is nice. But I would probably use another tool for that. Have you used Notebook LM yet, or have you come across that?
I have not.
Oh, you're going to like this, because this is really aimed at the academic crowd, which is you. So Notebook LM, L for Lima, M for Michael, is effectively a little cornered off AI, which you can add a bunch of documents to. And then in that little microcosm of stuff that you've uploaded, you can then query it, have it give you summaries, even give you study guides, all kinds of things. So the process works. You add documents, you can upload PDFs, you can add YouTube videos, and it'll go and grab the transcription, which is very clever. So you throw a whole bunch of stuff at it, and then from there, you can ask it any questions you want about the data, and it will give you answers based on just the data that you've given it. So much less chance of hallucinating. But then when it does give you answers, let me find one of the summaries here. The summaries, here we go, and it gives citations. So you can then see, okay, where did it get that answer from? And it will give you the citation of exactly where that answer came from. So for your field, absolutely awesome.
So Peter, is this already in my Chromebook, or do I need to get this somewhere?
This is available to everyone. Notebooklm.google.com. You can access it with a Gmail account now if you'd like. Accessing with a Workspace account, there's no difference in the standard Notebook LM, but there is a Notebook LM Plus, which I don't know what that means. So let's look. Google Workspace gets Notebook LM Plus. 5 times more audio, overviews, notebooks, queries, and sources per note. Your outputs and files won't be used to improve generative AI models. So, of course, free Gmail account, you're handing over your data. As usual. I mean, that's expected with a Gmail account, but, there you go. It's in the help guide.
There's worse things than training AI, though.
Yeah, you know what? Like, again, you can give it your PDF, but do they really care? Like, I don't care if they read my shareholders agreement. It's going to help me next time I want to ask for a shareholders agreement in Gemini. Like, go ahead.
I don't mind doing that. I mean, that seems to be kind of the paying it back of, all right, learn from what I'm doing so that you can help me do it better. But 2 questions. One, Microsoft, so Word Office, like I have Microsoft 365 through my university, can I just use the online versions of Excel and Word? Is that a viable approach in Google?
Great question.
Don't miss the final part. Part 5 coming up next.